I don't think it's a matter of if, it's a matter of when more of these discoveries are made.
Everybody wants their hands on the red metal, and BC's got lots of it.
Do I think we're going to find more goodies like that as we keep going? Damn right. I think we are.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you're signing in from today. I've got with me today so far 2 out of 3 luminaries of BC mining. Charlie Gregg, CEO of Metal Energy, and Stephen Stewart, founder and chairman of the OR Group. We will soon be joined by Tony Moreau, CEO of American Eagle Gold. Just some very brief last-minute technical difficulties, but I'm sure he'll join us very briefly. But the topic today is copper mining in the province of British Columbia. And just as we're joined by Tony, which is perfect, I'll ask gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Great. Thank you very much, Romeo.
Romeo, pleasure to be here. This is my first time on 6, so let's go. Talk about
awesome.
copper and British Columbia, 2 of my favorite things.
Yeah, exciting. There's a good number of people in the room, so I'm eager to get into the protein, but I'll get through some of my boring housekeeping stuff first. I'll say here's how it's going to work today for people in the room. I've got some thought starters just to get the conversation going between the 3 executives we got today. We do have some space for questions from the live audience. I know there's quite a few of you in the room, so please use that chat function at the bottom right of your screen to ask questions during today's event. If we don't have time for your question or it's a bit off topic, if it's really specific to an individual security, I'll still make sure the relevant team gets it so they get back to you at their earliest convenience. If you entered your phone number or email on registration, that's how they'll get back to you. So please do ask those questions, even though I don't get to them today, but I imagine you'll be able to get to a bunch. Last piece of boring housekeeping, this is being recorded and will be available for replay likely about an hour after it ends, so pretty early in the afternoon Eastern time. It'll come right at the same link, but it'll also be available on 6's YouTube channel. That's the boring stuff over. I'm really eager to get into today's discussion. And Tony, I'm going to start with you here. Given strong copper demand, obviously prices are hitting a new fun spike driven by electrification, renewable energy transitions, et cetera. What do you see as the untapped geological opportunity in BC's porphyry districts? What do you see as most promising for new discoveries in the junior space?
Well, obviously with the price of copper going up, there's more funds and ability for companies to raise money, have money, and put the metal in the ground. And really, the discoveries are there to be made in BC. And I think with more drilling, there will be more discoveries. So I think the big thing is now that copper is, hovering around $6, there's a lot more excitement for that work. So I don't think it's a matter of if, it's a matter of when more of these discoveries are made. And I think the other big thing is the government kind of, more actions rather than words, facilitating, permitting, allowing companies to drill, allowing companies to develop projects. But right now, there's obviously a lot more geopolitical risk.
Sure.
And these projects like Knack can be someday, they're going to run for 50, 60, 70 years, hopefully. So I think what investors should really look at is, would you rather take an extra 2-3 years where it seems that it takes for Canadian companies to get permits in Canada, and then once you have them, they run forever? Or would you rather get them faster in places like West Africa or South America? But you might be mining sooner, but there's always that risk of losing that asset. And we know costs are going up a lot more, billions of dollars to build this. So I think a lot of people that are lending this money for the development are going to have a lot more attractiveness to Canada. It may take a little longer, but those mines, once they're mining, they won't shut down. So I think there's a lot of different things that play, price and the government getting involved.
Awesome. Yeah, it's exciting to see metals prices finally really outpacing inflation. Charlie, I'll throw it to you for what you think is the biggest opportunity in BC copper space right now.
Yeah, I'm a geologist. Tony's not. We're schooling him up though. He's getting there. But from my take, there's a bunch of projects that they've been around and on the books, including Knack, for quite a while. But we've also had some new discoveries like, Amark's Aurora, and then the neighbors TDG hitting the western part of that. And those are actually in that district in a little bit younger rocks than were the typical hosts in that district. And then Knack itself is in very much younger rocks. And then there's things like Surge's Berg thing that they've been working on for a long time, but is kind of moving along and having more success. And then, Vizsla Copper has their thing near Houston there, Poplar. So that's kind of an exciting one. And those are all in younger rocks, or they're in a different different ages of rocks, and I think that opens up a lot more exploration to the geotypes. And you can explore in a lot of different parts of BC, and just because you're not in the Golden Triangle kind of late Triassic, earliest Jurassic age rocks doesn't mean you're out of the game. So there's a lot of good projects and a lot of good rocks, and there's still new things in the Golden Triangle too. Kingfisher's Highway 37 is good. So a bunch of different companies exploring in a bunch of ages of rocks. So it's a happy hunting ground out there, I think. Still, it's there. That's my take.
I like that. I hear that a lot this year, that there's more to BC beyond the triangle. So it's good that investors taking notice of that too. Stephen, I'll throw it to you for kind of last word on that topic before we go.
Yeah, well, there's no question. There's discoveries to be made in British Columbia. Charlie's been making them. American Eagles, made it, rediscovered, reinterpreted what Charlie had said it was on the books, but it wasn't understood like we understand it now, and we've invested quite a bit in defining it. Both near surface and at grade, and obviously you mentioned other big discoveries like the TDG and the A-Mark. Very interesting stuff, and we hope to recreate that with Metal Energy and the project that's been under Charlie and his partner Alex's tutelage for a while, and now we're going to get the Truth Machine out there. So there's no question that the endowment is there in British Columbia. I have a broader thesis that porphyry deposits are going to increasingly become a major or the major source of copper and gold over the coming decades, just because of their scale. And I guess you go back to the supply and the demand. Those are two separate things. I think BC has the supply that can meet any demand. And clearly, if you believe the experts, copper is the metal of the future. It's certainly one of the most utilized, or it has the most utility, arguably, than any other metal out there. Maybe iron ore could make a case for the higher utility, but look, it's top 1, 2, or 3 metals out there in terms of whether it's electrification or just traditional infrastructure. Everybody wants their hands on the red metal, and BC's got lots of it. Obviously, there's some out in the East Coast there. I'll talk other books like XXX has a bunch of copper, but those are different beasts. Porphyries are multi-decade, maybe century, 50 years at least. Some of these copper deposits, billion-ton deposits, they have completely different economic parameters and considerations. And then I'll make it, another case why I think BC, but in the broader context or envelope of Canada, is that I made this argument on an interview I did about a week or two ago on Resource Talks, about how I think Canada is going to bounce back. I think we have been not very competitive on resource development. From oil to copper to gold to you name it, and we've really shot ourselves in the foot in terms of or shot the golden goose, so to speak. Whereas I think a new regime and a new sort of theme across geopolitics is really focusing on what they call critical minerals. They're all critical minerals, but look, we're going to take these things more seriously, I hope, to pay the bills that we've accumulated. So look no further than BC, which is a wonderful place to do business. Has the infrastructure. Not all these projects have infrastructure. Even they do have infrastructure. You're talking about porphyries. They're big capex items, but that's why you need the long life. Let these things do. So as I go on and on. Copper is certainly one of the top metals in terms of investors' flavors, and it's got that sentiment. BC clearly got it, and then I think where we're going to slingshot is the fact that I think Canada is going to bounce back and reclaim our leadership crown in terms of resource development. That's not happening tomorrow, but it's I think it's on the horizon, and so that's the bet that we have made at the Ore Group with Metal Energy, with American Eagle, with all of our companies. We're nearly almost exclusively focused in Canada for good reason.
Awesome. The thing about copper that's really interesting for me is that I think it's undervalued in the sense of how it's moved. If you look at the way that silver and gold have moved. But I think copper, unlike a lot of the other metals, there aren't a lot of, there are next to no development projects underway, big ones for copper, but you have a safety net. So everyone's afraid of a recession. So if there is a recession, and some say we are in there now, there's public works programs. People will need the copper. So I think copper's got a lot less downside risk than a lot of the other metals. And then you combine it with this stuff. It's just a moving locomotive. You can't stop with the AI and electrification. That this copper demand, it has real fundamentals that it's going to continue to go. And it might not move as fast as gold, but I think long term it has a lot of room to move. So we're very excited about that.
Great. Yeah, I'm always hesitant to say copper's recession proof, but there's always somebody building somewhere. So I think it's more than people think it is. Now, somebody in the chat already wants us to get political and compare BC to Ontario, but I'll wait on that for a second because I know we've discussed Knack a couple times already. I do want to get into it a little bit with you, Tony, because with American Eagle's ongoing 30,000 meter drill program from started last year, shows those new mineralized zones in the Babine porphyry stock with broad intercepts, like 911 meters of 0.30 copper equivalent from surface. I'm curious just to get into the specifics. How do these results so far influence your broader understanding of that near surface copper gold potential in the district?
Well, those intercepts just show us that we're not bookended by the south. I had a meeting with South 32 the other day and Tech as well. And they said, they had that whole porphyry stock as a zero. And the fact that every hole that we've drilled there has come up with something, show that it is broadly mineralized. And it took a lot of holes in the south for us to really find those high grade zones. We didn't hit that stuff at depth in the south till our 41st hole. So we have a lot of room to move. And I think when there's that much copper, it's getting fed from somewhere. So I think there will be some high grade stuff. There will be stuff near surface. It's early days. I believe we put 6 or 7 holes right in the middle there, but it just shows you what Steven says. We have something at surface, something that we think that can pay off the mine and the capital. But with that stuff that we're seeing near the stock, we have something that can allow this thing to mine for decades and generations. So that's the exciting part, but it's still early days. I'm cautioning investors, but every drill hole we put there has come with anomalous copper and gold, and it's showing that we're really onto something. This is a lot bigger than any of our previous people that came on our property saw. What my uncle said, my late uncle that forced us to get Knack. He said, Tony, copper was 60 cents a pound. He said gold was $400 an ounce. And he said there were no roads, there's no logging in this area. He said, if any of those one different things had changed, if gold was higher, if copper was higher, if there's logging there, this was just a factor of putting more meters in the ground. This would have already been a mine by now. He said that. He said we were very lucky that all those factors were going against those previous owners. So it gave American Eagle Gold, our company, our shareholders, kind of that opportunity to take that asset. So I think it's just about more drilling, showing that this thing has scale, showing that we can pay off this thing. And, I believe, hand to the heart, that this will be a mine someday. But for me, it's just about convincing shareholders that it will be a mine. Because I'm sure Tech or South 32 probably be very happy to buy this at 60 cents a share. But our job is to convince the shareholders to get that price up, to get it to a point where American Eagle Gold and its shareholders would be happy to let it go. But I think we have a lot of room to move, and a lot of shareholder appreciation to come.
Yeah, I agree, Tony. Look, I'll just add on that. I think it's still early days in defining what Knack is and what it can be. So far, so good. We got very strong treasury, and we got years more to go in terms of drilling this out to discover. Obviously, there'll become a time when we want to start defining the size and the economics. Every project needs to get to that point. From what we see right now, we've got the scale. I mean, there's no question. It's a very broad system. We're still learning. I mean, it's a geologically complex system, as Charlie will be the first to tell you. He's the one that tells me that. And geologic complexity is something that you want. What has been demonstrated very clearly, though, is that it has a mix of very positive things. First of all, it's accessible. You can drive a car to it. It's the topography is pretty flat. It's very favorable. We're not in the mountains. And I think most importantly is that the mineralization comes to surface, particularly in the south. And we're seeing higher grades there. So that combination is going to allow you to pay back the $1 billion plus. Obviously, this is $1 billion plus CapEx type situations like all porphyries are, where you can pay back your capital in a reasonable time frame and you can produce for decades, generations. That's what that's all about. So that's the promise that Knack offers. And some of the lower grade stuff that we're seeing, elsewhere around in the peripheries, like, again, I emphasize in the south, we're seeing high grades at surface. Nobody seems to realize, pick up on that. We seem to be connecting higher grade, like plus 1% stuff at depth. So, this has surface depth potential, and then it just has scale as it expands, laterally and longitudinally, in lower grades. So, like, you look at a comparable, not that it's comparable, but just as an analog project like Teck's Highland Valley. I mean, they're mining sub 3% copper there because their capital's long paid back. So, that's the type of project I see Knack as a sort of a baseline, but obviously we're always looking to unlock something. And you find, what Tony calls the jewel box. I mean, we're always looking for that. It comes another Tonyism. It doesn't rain copper, right? So it's coming from underneath, and Charlie's in hot pursuit of it.
Now,
I'm going to jump in right now on that one, actually. Sorry about that, Tony.
Go for it, Charlie.
Initially, I was going to jump in and say, Stephen, Tony, come on, give us a bit better of a plug early on, for crying out loud. But I eventually got around to it. Sort of lower tier. I was a bit disappointed, but okay. What the guys both mentioned was that this thing was big, right? And yeah, there is certainly lots of lower grade around too. But remember, it's also covered by till. So, we don't have the advantage of having a good geologic map to help us understand the system. You have to put it together, with drilling, and that takes more time. And it's big, takes more time. So how do you explore something big with drilling? A lot of time. And that's, why it's taken, us a couple of years. And every year we find something new and better, and we find higher grade parts of it within that big cloud. Do I think we're going to find more goodies like that as we keep going? Damn right. I think we are. So, that's a big point about Knack, I think, and an important one. This cover of till, it's not thick. It's like 5 meters, 10 meters, maybe up to 25 in places. But it does mask a lot and means that the truth machine is really the only way you get the full understanding.
If you look at what's going on with the market right now, like you're seeing some of these other projects that were smaller than American Eagle now kind of get a lot higher value. And I think one of the reasons now you see copper, the price where it is, and people are like, we need to mine this yesterday. So some of the companies that I think have inferior assets, all of a sudden they have a PEA or mineral resource estimate. So all of a sudden they're a year, 2 years ahead of us, at least the market sees. But we will get there, and we don't really want to show how small this asset is yet. Like, we haven't figured out the bounds of it, so we want to at least give another year where we kind of put an MRE and work towards a PEA. But if you're talking about speed of getting things done, you talked about government, Romeo. Like, forget the BC government, forget the federal government. It comes down to the local government, which means the First Nations. And people from the outside, they think they look at First Nations in Canada. They think there's one First Nation group. A lot of people outside of Canada think that there's over 600, and there's over 300 in BC. So from my seat, there's over 600 different governments that look over these different projects. And the one thing that we have that's a real big advantage, the LBN, they're amazing partners. We've worked really closely with them. We've had a great relationship, and they really want a mine to be in their region. It's an economic driver. It brings people back to the land. It brings hospitals, brings education, brings skills. And the big advantage of our region, which was originally seen as not an advantage, is there are no other economic drivers. There are no other mines. And American Eagle is ahead of every other company in the region to be the first ones there. So if you're talking about permitting, we have First Nations support, and we may not have an MRE or PEA right now, but once we have that, I think we'll be leaps and bounds faster than in the other ones that might have that difficulty getting First Nations support. Like, you talk about Vancouver Island, yeah, there's some great projects there, but good luck building there. So if you kind of compare us to some of the other guys that might have a PEA, I think we actually will come to a mine faster than a lot of our competitors. But a big plug out to LBN. They're amazing partners, and that's what you need to be successful.
Awesome. No, appreciate that. And that's certainly good insight about just the number of governments that you actually do have to deal with their Canadian projects. Charlie, I'm going to throw you on for a geo question. So in the Toodoggone district, how are synergies, in your opinion, between epithermal gold-silver systems and underlying porphyry copper-gold targets shaping kind of exploration strategies for juniors in the region?
Well, I think they kind of go in hand. I mean, scientist types of academics have known that for a while. Explorationists, obviously, too. I mean, you see mineralization, and there's got to be some kind of heat pump down there that's driving a hydrothermal system, right? Hydro, water, thermal, heat. You need them both, and I think in the Tutagon, I think Amark's discovery that we were involved in to some degree, of that Aurora porphyry is in sort of younger rocks, but it's right next door to TDG's Shasta thing that Homestake developed as a mine, unsuccessful at the time, back in the 80s. They're right side by each and, pretty clearly more or less the same age. So, put 1 + 1 together and you got 2. And a good place in the Tutagon is to look around all the other epithermal systems. One of them is in a company that I'm involved in and a big shareholder of, which is Evergold, and at Golden Lion. So, is there sniffs of copper around that thing? Yeah, I'm not saying there's going to be a porphyry there for sure, but you want to be, cognizant of that and maybe looking in at some of the rocks that you wouldn't have looked in previously for a porphyry. Namely the lower Jurassic Tutagon formation that the Aurora deposits hosted in. So, those are all of a sudden more perspective. Certainly, our neighbors are looking at that. Certainly Sun Summit is. The Porphyry Pearl system next door is another one, so plugs for some of these other outfits. But, the potential's there, and you might not have looked at that potential previously. So the link between an epithermal system that's driven probably somewhere by an intrusive system, which porphyries are more directly associated with the intrusive rocks than epithermals have heretofore been, viewed as, is important.
Oh, great. And I do want to talk about Evergold, actually. I'm glad you mentioned it. And Stephen, I'll start with you, but then Charlie, I'd love to get your perspective on it too. So following Evergold's recent, the Jan 2026 OR group financing and sharpened focus on the Golden Lion project, 100% owned, including that Copper King inlier acquisition, how do you think this, just looking for your perspective, how do you anticipate this repositioning will advance copper porphyry valuation alongside gold silver potential?
What specific? I'm not clear on your question. Is specific to Evergold or
specific to Evergold? Yeah, that's right.
Well, I think look, I'll explain my the OR group's investment into Evergold. It's about one thing. It's an investment into Charlie and the team around him. It's as simple as that. That's part of my philosophy. As Charlie said off the top, Tony's not a geo, either am I. I rely very heavily on geologists to make educated bets that we at the OR group get behind. We put a little bit of corporate structure on it and help it finance it on its way. That's how I built the business, is developing relationship with trusted people like Charlie Gregg, like Charles Beaudry, who I started the OR group with 15 years ago and helped me build a lot of the stuff out east, and probably met Charlie. I remember meeting Charlie for the first time at the VRIC. It's probably about 4 or 5 years ago, Charlie. We sat down at the convention center. I don't know if you remember, but
I do. Yeah.
That was the start of a relationship, and it's taken years to get to where we are. We started off with American Eagle, and it's not just Charlie, and I also
you know what it is. I'll just interrupt for a sec. It's like the old saying: "Never met a Charles I didn't like." Right? Subscribe to that.
My son's name Charles.
It's a very royal name too, Charlie, But like I'll tip my hat to Charlie. It's not just Charlie and Alex Walcott, who was not a geologist, in my understanding, a geophysicist, but a very seasoned one, and his father was a very seasoned one. Charlie surrounds himself and has developed a wonderful team of the next generations of geologists. Whether it's his son, PhD Roy, whether it is Neil, who I'm supremely impressed with. That Tony's fortunate to work with. An American Eagle and others, Dave, and the list goes on, of the young talent that Charlie has harvested and mentored. So anyways, not to push Charlie and his team too much.
They would probably say abused.
They at times, but that's, it's kind of like he's in the Marines, Geo Marines at CJ Gregg and Associates. But so look, that's why I invested into Evergold. Because Charlie said, this is interesting. It took a little bit more than that, but they walked me through the thesis. I like the zip code. The value is there. I mean, look at Evergold valuation. You get it. You get assets in the Tutagon, and there's other assets, but as you referenced, the focus is going to be on the Golden Lion for now, because I think focus is important, especially and a small company that's just sort of repositioning itself. The company rolled it back. I mean, look at the share structure; it's phenomenal. Look at the assets. Look at the people. It just needs a little bit of money, a little bit of direction, and a refresh. So I think we're off to the races. We're going to set it up for success, and then just like all of our projects, it's gonna live or die on the success of the drill results. And we're going to get it there. We're going to define what the golden lion is or is not. I mean, that's the bet. But it all starts with people who identify good quality projects and then continue to de-risk them along the path, right? Golden Lion, it's the next Newmont project. Okay, so it has enough chops to attract a group like Newmont over the years, and Newmont, buys and sells assets all the time, and sometimes they just don't fit, or they get a new CEO. I mean, you don't want to throw the baby away with the bathwater just because Newmont, it wasn't the right project for them at the right time. There's a million reasons people walk away, but we take what they've learned and apply it to us, and then you apply a fresh set of eyes. Evergold has drilled it out, and look, so that's the whole idea. Is Evergold's going to be in a nice financial situation when the time is right to go out there and execute on Charlie and his team's vision of what Golden Lion might be. And it's surrounded by like Charlie's plugging TDG, who we have nothing to do with. Although Charlie, I think, has worked for them in the past. But look, we're right beside them, and that went to a $400 million market cap, whereas I think Evergold is a $4 million market cap. So those are the bets I like. Provided it's not just about the price discrepancy, but it has to have the foundation, and with an asset like it does, and the work that's been done by again, Charlie and his group. I mean, that's a bet I'll take all day.
Awesome. Yeah, I've worked with TDG for a year. It's a super interesting story. One thing I wanted to do, because I know part of the conversation today is about financing. So I do want to get into that before we get too far into the weeds on some of the projects. So I got a question for each of you. And Tony, I'll start with you. Kind of a two-part question, one broad and then one specific. That's how are explorers in BC adapting financing strategies? So you're looking at strategic investments from majors, flow through, et cetera. And what I really want is for you to tell me about your most recent financing and why you think it was good for shareholders. Tony, I'll start with you.
Well, there's a lot of different companies in BC. Obviously, there's a lot of different financings. There's a lot of money floating around. So, I think a lot of companies, they haven't had offers of money for a long time. So they're taking whatever they can. So still, I think the majority of financings, I don't think at first they're great for shareholders. A lot of them come at a discount. A lot of them come with warrants attached, obviously, which creates a ceiling, I think, at least temporarily for your price. You got coupon clippers, etc. And then, there are some strategics involved, but, I like to think, American Eagle Gold, and I guess now Metal Energy, I've done two of the best raises, shareholder-friendly raises on the street, not only BC, but in Canada. Like, you're looking at strategics that have come in, that have done the research, more research than any other investor has put in, seen the data room, and decided to do an equity investment at a premium with no warrant. And with multiple different companies involved, that's almost unheard of. And American Eagle and Metal Energy are pretty much the only ones that did it. I think Metal Energy was the very first company to have two majors invest without a single drill hole in the ground, which goes to show you something about the prospectivity and the upside that Metal Energy has. So those are the deals that we've done. I think the big problem is, in kind of jumping back, the big issue I see in mining and exploration moving forward, and the big problem we're going to have that there's going to be an awakening for that people don't realize is people. There's now the money that go into the projects. It's not being supported by the right people to actually explore them. And there's been a whole graveyard of companies that have gotten money that haven't been able to explore it properly. We're very lucky at the Ore Group and American Eagle Gold that we have really good technical geological people that are loyal to our group, that know how to make discoveries, that are sticking with us. Because I think a lot of these other BC properties, they do have the money, but do they have the people to make those discoveries? So I think we have those two kind of prongs with American Eagle Gold and the Ore Group that are kind of helping support us. But in terms of our deal with South 32, wouldn't ask for it a different way. We had enough money to fund us for 3 years. South 32 came in at a nice juicy premium with no warrants to join Teck, and it allows us the time. Time is extremely important. It takes time to figure out what a deposit could look like, to put the drill holes in. And look, yeah, American Eagle Gold, I'm a little disappointed with the share price. I think it should be a lot higher, but people that are paying attention to the story It gives those people that are actually paying attention the time to actually buy us at what I think is a really good price, around 40% below the price that South 32 decided to put $30 million into us. So I think the South 32 deal that we did, one of the best in the industry and good for our shareholders long term.
Well, thanks, Tony. Charlie, since we've already talked about the metal energy raise, I'll throw it to you to talk about financing and how that worked on your end.
Well, I just kind of sit and watch these guys work their magic a little bit. I mean, it is a little bit about relationships, that go back, quite a ways, with the tech guys and the South 32 guys, and then Alex with Centerra. Alex is a partner, my partner on that NIV project, and staked it quite a while ago, like 2010 or so. So. And he has a good relationship with Centerra. So I think that's part of it. Again, coming back to relationships that you developed and some trust, I suppose, and that kind of thing. Yeah.
It is. No, I'll add on to that. It is about trust and relationships, and again, people. Hats off to American Eagle and Metal Energy for doing those financings, but it was all about the foundation. Like, for example, I think we did the Metal Energy financing with those two big, amazing companies. One, we had the relationship with Tech through American Eagle. Two, Charlie has relationships with Tech and Centerra, and there was and South 32. So there's just this foundation. Now, a relationship alone doesn't get the job done, but it makes everybody comfortable and say, hey, these guys are for real. They know what they're doing. Let's dig deeper. And then it comes down to the data, which is something that Charlie, talks about all the time. And I mean, I think it goes back to his experience with GT Gold. And when that was sold to Newmont, and Charlie can speak for himself here, but I'll sort of paraphrase what he's told me is like, you have to have that database structured. You can't, it has to make sense. They have to be able to read it. You got to invest time and energy. And that's something that I've always taken away and extrapolated across all of our groups is like, make sure that database is sound. And because these guys are counterparties on the strategics who we've at the org group have done, probably 6 to 8 strategic deals. Like I'm not going to count, but a lot. And they need to have comfort. They need to be able to see what we see in that database. So it's about trust of the individuals. It's about the physical structure of the database. And then you have to negotiate too. And so that's maybe where, Tony and myself come into play is just sort of figuring out, again, a negotiation is just about two parties sitting down at the table and finding some common ground, which is just about listening and being patient and sometimes standing your ground and knowing when you get a good deal, and that's just experience.
The stuff with Centerra, South 32, Tech, with those two different companies, it's not just the money. Like the money's great, but it's also the technical expertise. It's giving the market that credibility. But also, I'll speak to American Eagle Gold. Like South 32, they're great partners, and they're very involved in helping us kind of get American Eagle Gold to where we want it to be. They're helping us make these discoveries. And they're put a lot of manpower, pro bono, kind of behind it. And then touching on what Steve said about trust, like we trust Tech and Centerra. They're great partners, and they obviously trust us to steward their money and put it in the right place. And I think combining Charlie's group with our group is kind of the perfect combination. Charlie knows the rocks, trustworthy on the geology side, and Steven and his group, we've been shown that you can trust us on the corporate side. The money that we have, it's not going to go to these crazy things like trips. It's going to go to putting money into the ground. Because in the end, the thing that sustains your stock price in the long term is the meters you put in the ground to make a discovery. You can only fake it for so long.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Charlie, one thing before I get into some more broad questions, just for folks who aren't as familiar with metal energy who are in the audience today, I wanted to just get into the specifics. So I know building on recent advancements, like your optioning and progression towards potential 100% control of the drill-ready NIV copper gold project in Tutagon, what priorities do you see for initial drilling in 2026? And how do you see that positioning metal energy within BC's porphyry cluster?
Well, it's, we already know that it's a pretty old system, so it kind of fits in that kind of golden triangle age bracket. One of the older ones, I think it's roughly the same age as Shaft Creek, which is across the Bowser Basin in the Golden Triangle. It's a Tech project. And so it fits in geologically or geochronologically that way. And in terms of drill targets, well, it's a trend that goes from one end of a north-south, elongated claim block to the other. That's between 4 and 5 kilometers long. Geochem is coincident with the right look in the rocks in terms of alteration, and also coincident with the geophysics as you go down. So, this is a pretty long trend. And if you're going in to drill something first time, I don't think, you focus on one area unless that first hole just, is a home run, which of course we'll hope it is. So we'll go to the area with the best geochem that also has the best coincident geophysical signature in the right rock. So we know where that is, and it's maybe toward the northern end, but I don't think we want to put all our eggs in one basket. So we look for a fairly sizable drill program, and we'll want to test various parts of that, north, northwest, south, southeast trending system, and not get too focused on, stepping out 10 meters from the previous hole, something like that. It's a porphyry. They're big, but they're also small. The systems are big, but where the juice is not always, that big. And a great example was the Saddle North discovery we had in GT. I mean, the actual center of that thing, if you step out 400 meters, you're out of there. You're missing. And if you step out 200 meters, you could be right out on the edge. So you want to stick pretty close, because some of them, go down rather than going out.
Sure.
And it kind of depends on the geologic history, but you got to be, careful, but you want to latch onto the thing too. So you don't want to, it just depends on the property, really. Just got to be open-minded.
There's good geo wisdom there. And one thing, I usually talk about M&A on these kind of events, but today I want to talk about JVs and partnerships a little bit. And Stephen, I'll start with you here. What role do you think partnerships with major mining companies are going to play in de-risking earlier stage copper and gold projects in British Columbia? And how do you think that's going to change this year with the copper price and gold price going up, for that matter?
Well, I think, look, speaking from our seat, how we've always approached majors, called operating strategics, has been, multifaceted. First, it's about what can they add beyond the cash. As Tony and Charlie had referenced, we like them in the room. Okay, that's important. From a strictly black and white perspective, on your balance sheet, they are in effect, I don't want to call it non-dilutive capital, because they may not be there forever, but I assure you they are more patient than your typical investor, whether that be retail or institutional. They're there for much longer than 4 months plus a day, which is, some investors are like that. So it's patient capital. And the last aspect is the fact that it's a stamp of approval, historically speaking, and it is. I mean, these guys are, while they don't walk on water, they have teams, and they all cover their butts, right? They don't want to make mistakes, so they do their due diligence, the database, the people. They just go to site. So there's an extra level of comfort that a typical investor who doesn't have the time or the ability to do that level of due diligence can say, well, if Teck or South 32 or Centerra or Newmont invests in here, then I feel a little bit more comfortable. How are they going to? How do they play into the grand scheme of British Columbia exploration? Well, I think of the past number of years, they've been a very important contributor to supporting companies like American Eagle, like Metal Energy. They've given us capital, whereas, call it the last 10 years, net 9 months, capital has been sparse, harder to find. We found it, but it's harder to find. Now, let's say going forward in a status quo environment, there's more access to capital. I believe Tony referred to that. There's a lot of money sloshing around, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, you get too much of it, then the wrong things get financed. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that they become less and less of a force because there's alternatives. And sometimes companies don't want to have a big company on their register, maybe because they can't get it, or maybe they just don't want those eyes looking upon them. But look, all else, and I think it's important to have a mix of both too, because you don't want to be overly encumbered, because you want to be able to, the whole, really the exit on these things is for us to do a trade sale. Like it's highly unlikely that American Eagle or Metal Energy is the one that ultimately puts the shovel in the ground to develop the mine if we're so fortunate to get to that point. So the exit point really is about having one of these major mining companies, whether it's the ones on our existing treasury or new ones that say, hey, come over the top and buy it. You don't want to be married too early, right? So that's always a consideration. The point I'm trying to make is that you want to mix of your capital structure. There is no perfect cap table. There is no perfect deal. So you have to balance, you have to blend, and you have to take what the market gives to you. But look, aside from that, I would say there's a lot of other, like Fortescue, for example, came out of nowhere and has made like huge land package, huge. I don't know if they're investing in juniors, but like they're investing in British Columbia. So we are seeing more capital come into the thesis I was talking about. Is that, look, porphyries are going to be a major contributor to the metal profile, copper and gold on the coming decades, and British Columbia has got no shortage of it. So we're not the only people that feel that way, clearly.
Oh, great.
Look at porphyries. Look at porphyries. They last 50, 60 years. And the way that I look at it is, do I think copper is going to be higher or lower 10, 15 years from now when these porphyries do get developed? 100% higher. I can say that. Now, if these porphyries are developed, which countries can I be 100% certain that if they do get developed, they're not going to be taken away? There's not many of those. Canada, Australia, US. That's it. So if you're actually going to make those 50, 60-year investments, spend billions of dollars, I don't think there's anywhere else to go. So you're going to see a lot of money migrating to Canada. It's going to come a lot quicker once the government starts putting actions into some of those changes in policy.
Great. One thing, I'm going to combine a question I have with one that's in the chat, because obviously we are talking about British Columbia today, and we've inferred a lot from the conversation already. But really, what I'd love to know is, in light of recent infrastructure advancements and seemingly very supportive policies in BC, a couple of easy questions for all of you. What is BC doing right? What could it do better? And how does it compare to other jurisdictions in Canada? Charlie, I guess I'll start with you, actually, if you don't mind.
Oh my God, I was hoping I wouldn't get this
Jumping
one.
straight to you.
Actually, what is BC doing different and better? What could it do better? As a born and bred British Columbian, and someone who got into the business because I love being up in the mountains and out in the wilderness, basically, and I've tried to do that most of my life. I think you have to take care, and maybe almost too much care to some degree has gone into that, maybe alienating too many areas. I don't know. I think I have to stay out of this question.
I think I'll help you out there. I mean, I think what British Columbia does a wonderful job of protecting the integrity of its nature. I mean, British Columbia is known for having natural beauty. That's what Charlie was saying. He's drawn to the mountains and the snow, and he's a mountain man, and he loves it, right? And I think British Columbia takes that very seriously. So they do a good job at that, preserving the salmon, and they do a wonderful job at liaising with the First Nations. And generally speaking, the First Nations of British Columbia are quite sophisticated because they've had economic development and they participate, and they want these projects to progress as long as they're done with great care to the environment, and they get a say in how things are done economically and sustainably and otherwise. I think what British Columbia can do better is faster the permits, and that's a blanket statement for everywhere. Let's call it Canada, but British Columbia is no exception. That's for sure. It needs to streamline these things in order to be competitive with the world. And as I talked off the top, if Canada is going to bounce back, and I do believe it will be, reclaim its status as a world leader in the extractive industries, we need to get these projects to market faster. It's that simple. You can't go. Outside of the development challenges, you can't have a 20-year permitting process. You just can't do it. Money's going to go elsewhere. I mean, we've seen that very clearly. So and it's not like I'm suggesting that we permit things unresponsibly, we can do these things responsibly in like 1 or 2 years. Okay, we just have to have people coalesce and sort of get on the same page, write the rules, have them make sense, make sure that they're top in the world, because I think that's Canada's competitive advantage. Is like let's talk about our oil, which is more controversial than anything else. Like, who do you think is more sustainable and safely and invest the capital better? In the oil industry, Canada or others in the Middle East. So we do it better, we do it cleaner, and we know where the use of proceeds of those funds are going. So I think if Canada maintains those standards, at the same time streamlines, call it the red tape, the unnecessary red tape, because a lot of these permits are just permits for the sake of being permits, if you know what I mean, right? So that's what BC needs to do better. And I think it can without sacrificing quality.
Great. There's a lot of questions in the chat, and I want to get to as many of them as I can. But before I do so, I do want to give all of you an opportunity. There's more than 100 people in the room. Just want you to pitch your stock as aggressively as possible. I usually give the instruction here to not act too Canadian. Why should investors in the room give you guys a look? Tony, I'll start with you.
Well, I think we were extremely undervalued, and I honestly believe this is going to be mine. I think that's the big thing. And I think there's a big delta between what these major mining companies that invest in us believe it would be, and what the investors out there understand it to be so far. So I think if I'm able, and I think it's work that's not going to cost a lot of money that I can do. It's about communication to the market and explaining it to them. And I think it's just a value proposition right now. Look at us right now towards some of our competitors. We're a $100 million market cap company. So, my target for us, forward-looking statement, I don't think there's a reason why we should be under 500 million. So I think there's a lot of room to gain there. And that's important to say, because I think a lot of the capital, a lot of the investments you're seeing from different investors, it's fast money. People that want fast returns, 5Xs overnight. So if someone's looking at, for example, AE or some 2 cent junior that has a $2 million market cap, that money's kind of flying over there right now, and then they think they can come back to AE. But I think we're in a lot different position than we were last year. Our last news results came out January 7th. We're going to have news coming out all the way to March. So a lot of that capital is flying away from BC, going to South American catalysts. They're actually staying within the American Eagle investment right now. And I think by the time our last results come out, PDAC's going to be, coming on, and we'll come back to Canada. So I think investors will stay in AE a lot longer than our other competitors. And we have some really amazing news to come. I'm telling you right now. So I just say, wait and see, invest and take a risk on us. But our stuff is big. We have great partners. We have high grade. And as Nate Smith says, a big investor and friend. We have all the ingredients for amazing recipes. So I think American Eagle Gold, like I always said, we sell dreams, not jeans. And I think this dream will become a reality soon.
Appreciate it. Charlie, I'll throw it to you to pitch your heart out.
Which one do you want me to do, Stephen? Metal Energy?
Go Evergold.
Go for it, Charlie. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go Evergold. Well, we've been involved with this project since day one. I think I staked the claims in 2007 first, so been there a while. But really, it's only had 2 drill programs, just Evergold and Newmont back in '84. So we're going to focus on Golden Line. We're going to focus on the gold silver system. It has lots of open ground for testing. Even with shallow holes, we can thoroughly test that. So a systematic, focused drill program, revitalized kind of management and cap structure. It's a good investment. With, I don't know, how many shares are out, Stephen? I can't even remember. Very few.
12 million, 13 million shares.
Yeah, so we rolled it back, and I got rolled back in a big way, but I really believe in that property, and I think we just go drill it systematically. It's great. We know where we're going to go, and we know what we're going to do, and I have confidence that we're going to produce some great results in a very, very, very hot district where there's a lot of other eyes on that district. We're right in there. Great,
Stephen. I'll throw it to you.
Awesome. I'm going to do all 3. Okay, I'll make it easy, and I'll keep it good. So I guess start with Metal Energy, okay, because that was in the news. Metal Energy, MERG. It's been a long road to get where we are today. We did this deal with Niv and Charlie. We are very well financed. We've got two of the most respected operators in British Columbia who saw exactly what Charlie saw. Our team at the Org Group saw independently of Charlie. We've got multiple people saying that this target needs to be drilled. It was critical that you go there, you do it well financed. We're well financed. I think we've got $9.5 million in cash, and we're gonna test the hell out of this thing in 2026. Look at the valuation; it's $30 million valuation and that's with $10 million of cash. Next, with beautiful neighbors. Okay, and we know exactly what can happen there. Again, I referenced TDG, $400 million market cap. So if we hit on some of those holes, boy, I think it's really there's awful lot of torque and metal energy. So it's going to be an exciting 2026. For American Eagle, I'll pitch AE now. Of course, I'm the chairman of that company. Been there with Tony and since day one. I think all in, has the best shot at being the next developed copper gold porphyry in British Columbia. The best shot at it. Obviously, we got work to do, but when you factor in the fact its topography, this low-lying elevation, of course, the geology's got to cooperate. The fact that we've got near-surface high-grade mineralization, we've got mineralization at depth, and this thing is big. The system is so big, we haven't defined its limits. We're learning every day. It's got, again, just like Metal Energy, it's got endorsements from South 32, made a big bet. So did Teck. We're well financed and we're drilling away. So I mean that and look relative to its peers, it's undervalued. And we've had some tax loss selling in December. So get in now. And then last, I mean not least, although it's not officially an Org Group company, it's a material investment that we've made, is Evergold. Again, $5 million company with guys like Charlie Gregg behind it. It's absurd, and it's been overlooked. A guy that sold the project for $500 million. Like, these are quality people. You can't find too many shell companies for $5 million in the Toronto Venture Exchange. After we've had a little frenzy the last 6 months, they just don't exist. But then you look at it, you say Charlie Gregg's in there, Org Group's in there. They've got a project in the Tutagon. My goodness. Okay, like, we got work to do here, but it's all about risk reward and placing your bets based on potential outcomes. Take a look at Evergold, take a look at Metal Energy, and of course the big boy in the room, American Eagle. There's value there, guys, but just buyer beware. But if you like to play the juniors, there's 3 great companies in British Columbia right there.
Appreciate it. Thank you all for the pitches. I've got some really fast questions because I unfortunately have about a 3-minute hard stop here. So I'll just do some of the quick ones. Demaro from the chat asks, Tony, is there any possibility of finding any rare earth minerals at Knack?
Well, if you go to your backyard and take a scoop out of the ground, you'll probably find some rare earths. So I think the big question is, is the quantity there? Look, right now we're focused on copper, gold. We have molybdenum. We have silver. That's enough right now. But if we hit a drill hole and all of a sudden something's there, who knows? But our focus isn't on rare earths right now.
Great, appreciate it. Yeko from the chat asks, and Steve and Charlie, whoever wants to answer this, how important are DEM results in setting up financing for a major gold line program?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't get my hopes too high up there. We drilled this thing right at the end of the season. The cores, I'm looking out and I can see the last core box there. So we're just in the process of finishing the logging and sampling that. And then we're going to send off the samples. So it's going to be a while yet before that gets through the lab. But, it looks like a big dispersed system. I wouldn't say it knocks my socks off, but the assays will tell the tale there. An interesting system so far. It hasn't really proven up for us, but I'm not going to speculate that it's going to knock your socks off. Let's just say that. But I've been surprised before.
Okay, appreciate it.
That's why the focus is on Golden Lion. I mean, not that I know nothing about DEM assays at all, but I think the company's been clear the focus is on Golden Lion. So we're going to set the company up to focus on it and see where the chips fall. And DEM is there when, if, as, and when we decide to allocate further capital to it.
Awesome. Demaro from the chat asks, Stephen, is Org Group or any Org Group companies going to be at the VRIC or generally conferences?
Yeah, we're all going to be there. So me, Tony, and Charles will all be there. Come say hello.
Awesome. I'll be there too. Charlie, Stephen, Tony, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a great conversation. Great companies for being in the room. I know there was a lot of you. Appreciate I didn't get to every question today. I will send them through to the respective teams. But thank you all so much for joining me. And gentlemen, hope you have a great end of your Friday and have a great weekend.